What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. Firstly, thank you for coming to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please smash that like button and please consider pressing that subscribe button. It really does help the channel, and we're aiming to hit 1,000 subscribers very soon. This episode, I get to sit down with a legend, Porter, the Australian Crossfitter, 6 times Games athlete. We talk about his early CrossFit career, how he got into CrossFit, his CrossFit Games experience, and also we talk about a subject that's very close to Khan's heart, and that is mental health. Mental health generally, and also mental health when it comes to being a top level athlete and dealing with the pressures of being a top level athlete. Super cool guy and so down to earth. Probably one of my favourite CrossFit athletes out there at the moment, and the guy loves a beer too. So without further ado, let's head straight into it.
Well, thanks for coming on it anyway, mate. I really do appreciate the time.
No worries, bud.
Before we get started, I know you are a lover of craft beers.
Oh, my man.
So I would like you to choose me a craft beer to have now. Although it is 8:30 in the morning in the UK.
Oh, mate, 10 before 1 or 1 before 10 or 10 before 1. That's the rule we always used to play.
Exactly. So we've got a Pride and Joy Pale Ale.
Ale, yeah.
We've got a IPA.
Ooh, I do like that can. Very fancy.
And then we've got a wild beer, but this is a flavoured one. I think it's passion fruit.
I'll go the passion fruit one.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the sours. I feel like if you're going to kickstart your day with a beer, you might as well have it as a fruity one. It's just like a fruit juice with your cornflakes.
I was kind of hoping you was going to say that. I'm not a massive beer fan, so I was like, a bit of flavour will do me well.
Yeah, nice little in-betweener, mate. So cheers to you. I wish I had a beer on me at the moment.
Cheers to that.
I had plenty of them on the weekend, so I think that's maybe done until the games.
Awesome. So before we get started, to everyone who has no idea who you are, which they should, you are Porter, you are the Australian CrossFitter, and if I'm right, is it 6 times Games athlete? Is that right?
6 qualifications pending this year's attendance, but yes, 6 times punched that ticket, 5 times individually and once on the team last year.
Yep. And so just going back to your early days in CrossFit then, how did you originally get into CrossFit and how old was you?
Mate, I've been doing it now, I want to say 8 years. I want to say this is my 8th season. So I kind of started mid-year 2012.
Okay.
I started doing a little bit of CrossFit-esque stuff before that at just like a Globo gym. And I think I just gravitated towards it because it was just the style of training, like really high intensity stuff with like that kind of performance aspect. I think that I needed something that was not aesthetic based or like in that kind of world. I grew up playing sports. I played rugby at like a reasonable level and competed at I guess like an international level at surf lifesaving. So I kind of had that background and just wanted a competitive outlet. So I sort of gravitated towards it. And then did a few workouts at the Globo gym, as so many people do. Ended up joining a local CrossFit gym. And then that was mid-year 2012. I was that guy that walked into a gym and said, hey, I'm signing up because I want to try and make the CrossFit Games. Which, like, having been involved in gyms for a while now as well, you kind of come across and you think, oh, how am I going to have this awkward conversation? But I was very lucky that the next year I qualified for regionals, and then I finished 10th. And then the year after that, I qualified for the games for the first time, 2014. Booked 3 tickets in a row, had a year off in 2017. Probably the best thing that happened to me, probably like a highlight of my CrossFit career in its own way. And then, made it again, 18, 19, and now this year, 20.
So you said you made regionals. Was that a year after you started CrossFit?
Less. It would have been about 8 months after I started.
Wow. So one of my questions was going to be, was you good, like kind of from the offset? Like, could coaches see a potential in you straight away, or is it something you kind of
so I was extremely lucky. The gym that I joined was owned by the partner of Chad McKay, who was number 1 in Australia at the time. And so I did a few workouts and she's like, oh, why don't you train with him a couple of times? And I trained with him and I remember him saying, oh, you'll make regionals, and me being like, oh, really? That's crazy. I can't believe that. But like I'd always done a similar style of training to this though. And I think like, whether it's because I'm not quite all there in the head or like my own like mental battles that I've fought over the years, like I've never shied away from just like hurting. I've always been really, really good. I think that was something that gave me an edge at the start, and I was just naturally good enough. Like I'm super mobile as well, which I think is something that people neglect. Like I have hypermobile ankles, shoulders, all that sort of stuff. And I think that is such a hindrance for so many dudes. But that was something that I was super lucky with at the start. But yeah, like I just clicked with the sport. And, you know, I mean, I think the first time I made the games, there were still skills that I couldn't really do. Like the first time I made regionals, I didn't know how to do a muscle up without a false grip. First time I made the games, I didn't really know how to climb a rope. I think I'd spent the first 8 months of my CrossFitting, like before regionals, I'd never really dropped barbells because we couldn't drop them at the gym that I trained at. But what I could do was just fucking, excuse my French, just
no, swear away. This is fine.
Yeah, and I think that has probably got me to a certain point, and then it was like, okay, now you really need to go back and polish up on everything else because everyone else is getting really fit now, and just burying yourself is not going to be. You're not going to keep making the games if that's
that must be an awesome position to be in though for you, like knowing you can go into that deep dark place.
No way. I'd rather be one of those athletes that's just like ridiculously strong or ridiculously good at like gymnastics. So they're just like, man, that's my workout. Bink a bunch of points there. Just kind of come mid-pack. But all those ones that are just like gross workouts.
You've got to kill yourself.
This is where you're going to have to pick your points up, boy. Time to just bury your fucking head and go. So,
and you know it's going to hurt.
So I mean, but I love it. Like, and I still enjoy chasing that feeling, and I still enjoy testing how far I can push myself into that hole. So
you was just saying then about the first time you made the games, and there was still kind of skills you were kind of not proficient at. What was that first year of making the games like for you then, as a kind of overall? With any highs and lows, learning curves?
Yeah, I think it was a big eye-opener. Like I'd competed for 2 years at that point within Australia. I think it gave me an appreciation that I think a lot of people get in their first year going to the games from talking to some of the other boys. You realise just how good everyone is. And I was a kid, I was 23, 24 at the time, so still young. It was awesome though. Like it was a really positive experience, but it was very much like a learning curve. And I look back at that and think, I mean, God, like I don't even know what I took away from it, if that makes, in a weird way to say that. Like all I took away from it was like, wow, that was really cool. And let's hope that. I think I was going through some stuff like with my mental health and stuff that maybe detracted from necessarily me getting the most out of that experience that I could, both personally and as an athlete. But at the same time, it was a really positive experience. And, you know, obviously it lit the fire that made me want to keep going back. So
yeah, 100%. And obviously this year you've got your spot. You're just unsure of whether you can even fly there. What are the restrictions kind of like at the moment with Australia?
Mate, this year is like,
it's mental.
Like this, it's crazy. And it's frustrating because this is the best shape I've ever been in. It's the most mentally and physically ready to compete I've ever been, or was, prior to all this COVID stuff happening.
Yeah.
And like I'd spent, you know, I felt like this was kind of like the first year that I was really putting everything together and everything was kind of falling into place. Now, that kind of fell off the wagon a little bit once all the COVID stuff happened, and it's been nice having the games as like a pipe dream back on the cards, them saying we're still going to do it. But yeah, like, I mean, that's all pending. I have to apply to leave the country here in Australia. I don't even know what the entry requirements are in America. It's weird. It's weird that I'm excited, but I still have no idea if it's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess it's that kind of uncertainty, because I spoke to David Schronke, the UK guy who's going, and he's based in Sweden, but he's not even sure he can go. And it's going to be very last minute until he can make any kind of flight arrangements. And it's just that uncertainty. So he's still, back of his head, is still training day in, day out for the games. But then there's that level of uncertainty, what he just wants addressing. But I guess that's anyone's.
Well, that's it. I mean, I trained hard for the first kind of couple of weeks. I was supposed to be, right when all this kicked off, I was supposed to be flying over to Europe and doing the German competition and the Egyptian competition. And I kind of locked them in as like little test the waters, see where I'm at. And like I trained pretty much to peak for that. And then, like, you know, when you're at that peak and you go, man, like I feel so good. that was kind of right when all this kicked off, and I didn't want to lose that. So I was like, I'm going to just keep training, and like maybe this will be a 2-3 week thing. And then there was like, oh, there's still the Aussie competition, so let's just maintain where you're at until that comes around, or let's just maintain where you're at until something comes up. And then like one by one, when everything was cancelled and CrossFit hadn't made an announcement, and like I just kind of fell off. I was like training once every other day, maybe like 90 minutes every couple of days. Like doing sort of strength and endurance, but just I think there was like a 2-week period where every CrossFit workout, you just had to suffer. I tapped out. Like I just started the workout and went, like, what am I doing? I don't need to be burying myself at the moment if my next competition is not going to be till the CrossFit Open at the end of the year. But and then when they announced who was going, that kind of kicked me back into gear start of last week. So I put in a decent training week last week. I had a decent week this week. So we'll see.
And do you think it should be on from a selfish like perspective? Do you like kind of wish it would be on, or do you think this?
I think this is a weird one. Like I think I've seen so much, and it was almost like I was taken aback when I found out how they were going to, like the people that were going to get to go. Obviously, you know, it's extremely disappointing. There's a guy from my gym, Dan, who qualified as the national champion from Samoa, and the guy works his ass off. And like, I feel so much for those people that aren't now going to get to go. Like, that is extremely disappointing, especially those guys that were like borderline top 20 worldwide in the Open, but then maybe nabbed a national champion spot.
Yeah, as Zach George is in the same position.
Yeah, like that is so brutal. And I feel for those guys, I really do. And perhaps this is selfish, but my opinion is something's better than nothing. And even if I was unable to go over, like let's say I can't leave the country, I can't, whatever. Like first of all, that I still qualified for the 2020 CrossFit Games. And I did it through a sanctioned event, which I believe is like one of the most legit ways to book your ticket.
Yeah.
So like I still have that. Like I still know that I qualified this year. And if I can't go, well, fuck, the world's in all sorts. Have something still though. I don't care if it's just the American athletes and the few international athletes that can get there. Still host the games. Make it mad. Like I'll watch it. And I'm sure the people complaining will still watch it. I think provided you can do it safely for both the athletes and everyone involved, and legally, I do not see an issue with running it.
Yeah,
personally.
I think like the safety aspect is obviously is a big thing. But you got a dog down there?
Yeah, sorry, he's just he's shredded this like box, and it's
That's right, I'm joined in here as well. Pops.
Say hi, Connor. There he is.
Poppy. Oh, she's knackered. She's just been for a walk. Little football.
He's a 7-month-old puppy, and he has ripped. We're moving at the moment, and he's ripped to shreds a box that has stuff in it. But God love him. But yeah, I mean, that's my opinion. Is for whatever it's worth, I think if you can host any form of competition, host it with whoever can get there. Put on a great show, even if it's just like 10 of the best guys from the US, all able to go to Castro's Ranch. Fuck them up for a weekend. I'll watch that for sure.
Well, I think the beauty of it, because there's been no live sports or like no events for like the past couple of months now, everyone is just kind of in that position where they need something to kind of uplift them. And if CrossFit can put on an event of, even if it's 10, 15 of the top athletes, people are going to be like, oh, we're going to tune into that and we're going to watch that. It's going to be awesome. As long as they can do it safely, I guess there's no issues.
Yeah, and this is what I always find this strange when people cast their like opinions on stuff like this, when it's kind of like, I mean, them running it or not running it, like them running the competition, like some of the people, like I understand that athletes that missed out being disappointed. Totally get that. It's a very tiny percentage of the population. And that's typically not who's whinging about this at the moment. It's like just random punters that are like, it shouldn't go ahead. It's not this, it's not that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't get it though. Like if it does go ahead, how does that change your life? Like, how does that affect you at all? Like I don't get it. You got no skin in the game. Why are you casting such an aggressive vote? Like but that's human beings in general.
That's social media and keyboard warriors. You're going to get it. It's just the way it works, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't get it. But anyway, like it is what it is. And
cool.
I mean, fuck, if I can get there, I'm going to rip it.
What's say you've got to fill in an application, is it, to enter the US?
No, that's to leave Australia. So
leave
technically,
Australia.
at the moment, all Australian residents are banned from leaving the country. So there's a travel ban on entry and exit for us.
Yeah.
Also, you can come back in if you're an Australian national, but there's an actual ban on exiting the country. However, there is an online, like there's a website that you can go to, click the link, fill out a form. But I'm in that same position that you're saying about Shirang, where I'm like, do I do that now or do I wait for things to get better? Because things are getting good here. Like we are slowly opening back up. Like we kind of really nailed it. You know, we're getting, 2, 3, 4, 5 new cases a day at the moment. Maybe like we kind of, we're an island, which is great. The only thing that crushed us was they let a fucking cruise ship in. And there's like 2,000 people on this fucking cruise ship, and a bunch of them had the virus. And then for a period of time, everyone could pretty much be traced back to this stupid cruise ship. But I guess that incubation period's over, and I'm sure it'll spike a little bit again. But it looks like we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think we're still getting quite a few cases here, which
I actually interviewed a fella from the UK the other day, and he was saying it's like you guys are only allowed just back out again, to leave houses.
Yeah, and they reckon gyms will probably be like July, August time, so we've still got quite a while, I think.
See, I mean, there's that aspect as well. Like certain athletes in certain countries can even go and use a gym, and again, I totally get that. But and maybe as well, someone, I was talking to one of my mates about this, and they're like, yeah, you've been 5 times before, so it doesn't mean as much to you. And in some ways that's true, but in others, this is hands down the most work that I've put into a year of competition. So yes, I've been a bunch more times than most people, but I've also, it doesn't devalue the value it for me in any way, shape or form. But
and you still had to work your ass off to get there as well. So it's the reward of that.
Qualifying in a sanctioned event, I qualified in a sanctioned event in China, in a foreign country. I spent thousands of my own money, my own dollars. I didn't get, actually, people can choose to believe this or not. It's one of the competitions I didn't choose or ask for any support from my sponsors, because it was the end of the year. I'd already done a bunch of other competitions. So I paid for that out of my entire, all out of my own pocket. And I'd love to get to go and put that, put a year of hard work to the test. But again, whether that I can or not, whole different kettle of fish. And if I can't, still run something, I reckon.
Yeah, life goes on. Awesome. So let's just move on to kind of mental health. I know you're a big advocate of mental health. I know you struggled a little bit in the past. Do you think it's kind of stemmed from being an elite athlete and trying to manage the pressures of it?
Nah, fuck no. I mean, that's had an impact on me, but I've been doing, this is, first of all, mental health issues are really prevalent within my family. So my immediate family, there's 5 of us, mum, dad, 3 brothers. And of the 5 of us, 3 of us have been medicated for mental health issues, have to get regular treatment for it. In fact, one of my brothers was recently hospitalized for mental health stuff. So it's something that's been a part of my family. And then even in my extended family as well, on both mum and dad's side. And it's something that has affected me for a lot longer than I have been doing CrossFit. In fact, you could say my anxiety disorder and certain aspects of that have been since childhood. I can think back to just certain childhood things and anxiety and ADHD type stuff that were later diagnoses in life, but that explain a lot of certain thoughts, feelings, behaviors from when I was a kid. And it's the same as with mum and dad, sort of as my mental health journey unfolded as I got older, we would kind of sit down and go, okay, well, fuck, this makes a lot of sense, because this is what you were doing when you were 7, 8 years old type thing. So it's obviously something that's just the way that I'm wired. That's just the way that I am as a person. And the pressures of being an athlete certainly didn't help that early on. I think I've really done a hell of a lot of work to change how I am an athlete, how I see myself as an athlete, and how I try to conduct myself as an athlete, and how the whole athletic process to make that better. But I think it took, like I said, 2017 missing out on the games to have a really positive effect on that for me, and to really help me with that process. But I think the early years, and again, it's all internal pressure. I went from being this kind of anxious, insecure kid to all of a sudden getting like thrust. You're suddenly one of the best in the world at something, and something that you really like as well.
Yeah.
Like not many people are lucky enough to find something that they love and then get to that level at it.
Yeah.
And like I was a little bit like lost before that, sort of like floating around, not really sure what I was going to do. And then like getting that, like having that was kind of like this massive whoa, like, okay, that's really, really cool. But I really heavily, like I attached my identity to that. So, okay, well, like, you know, you have to make the games, and, you know, if you don't make the games, like, you know, that's devaluing yourself as a person and how you think of yourself. And yeah, like, I mean, I was super lucky that I did for 3 years, but I think not making it in 2017 kind of reframed that whole thing for me. And I was like, okay, if you don't make the games, the world doesn't stop turning. You're still like, you know, there's still people that love you. There's still people that care about you. Sorry, stupid dog's ripping this box up. And you still love training. You still love competing, even if you didn't win. Like, I think 2017 regionals, I had such a blast competing the whole weekend. And I think I was in the same position after day one in that competition that I was in 2018. I still came back and podiumed in 2018, but I think I was in 10th or something after day one in 2017. And I just pulled the pin mentally. I was like, oh, I'm not going this year. Like I'd never been outside the top three. The years that I made it, I think I'd always kind of been around the top three after the first day. So I was just like, well, I'm not going to make it. So let's just have fun. And I did, and I really enjoyed it. And I think as well, I started to see the benefits in competing purely from my own self-growth perspective, and that being like, you know, the process of going into competition, there's a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of anxiety, performance anxiety and stuff like that. Yeah. But then taking the competition floor, it's almost like a little fuck you to those voices and be like, hey, I did it, like irrespective of the placing. And like sometimes even if I fail, it's more of a fuck you. It's like, hey, I just did that, put myself out there, did terribly, or like even like not terribly, like didn't get what I wanted, or didn't achieve what I sort of set out to, but I'm okay. So that's like that's a massive. There's massive amount of self growth for me in that, and that's kind of how I look at competition now. Cool. Yeah. If I go out and I set myself a goal and I achieve that goal, fantastic. If I don't, well, hey, you did a thing that those voices in your head that have been there since you're a fucking kid told you can't do and you shouldn't do and you have no right to do. Awesome.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And then obviously I've noticed a lot more, you've obviously been posting a lot more on social media about mental health awareness. Like this week's been mental health awareness week as well. And
cool.
I think people talking about it, especially kind of high level athletes who like myself and a lot of other CrossFitters look up to, and then they see the elite guys as well also struggling with anxiety and struggling with day-to-day pressures. It just kind of makes it relatable, and it makes it more acceptable for us to talk about with one another. So I think what you're doing is incredible.
Well, I think that's the goal of it all, is to normalize it to the same way that like I wish we talked about mental health in the same way. Well, and it's getting there. I think it's getting there, particularly within like big cities. I'm lucky I live right in the heart of Sydney, very kind of liberal, progressive city, not just in Australia, but on earth. Yeah. And so it is quite openly spoken about here, and there's so many forums for it. And I think that what I want to do though, or what I would love to see, is it normalized. At the moment, there's almost like people are like, man, you're so brave for speaking about mental health and for like being open and honest about it. And like, even that to me is kind of stigmatizing in its own way, because it's still denormalizing it. It's still saying that there is something different about speaking about mental health to just speaking about your physical health. Yeah. And that's where I would love to see it get to the place. And what I think, I mean, this is a whole other avenue, is I think that then opens up avenues for people to kind of like glamorize it to some respect, which doesn't do wonders at all for people that are genuinely suffering. But what I would love to see is it get just so normalized. And that's why when I try to talk about it, I always try to speak about it really in a kind of like a neutral way. Like, this is just a part of my day to day, and I manage it, and I'm okay. And I'm actually doing all this stuff like relatively normally, but just dealing with this in the background, and it's not normal. And like, it can be fucking debilitating. And like, my partner and plenty of my close friends have seen how bad it can get. But it is like, I just want to see it. I don't want to see it glamorized. I want to see it normalized in the same way that you'd say, hey, I'm going to the gym because I want to lose a few kilos. I want to get a little bit fitter and run 5K. You'd be like, hey, I'm going to see a psychologist because I just want to get better at dealing with stress. Or like, I just feel like I get too anxious too easily. Or just, I feel like I'm ruminating on things that are making me feel depressed. And that not be like, that's so brave of you, but also not be like, oh, you're fucking weird. Like, I just want it to be normal. Like, it's just, that's day to day for some people.
That's a really cool way of looking at it. Yeah, I think that's cool. And I noticed on your Instagram bio now, you've got you're a psychology and counselling student.
I am. I've been studying that for a while, like full time, then part time, then took a bit of time off, then part time again. I actually took this semester off. So I'm doing a bachelor's degree with honours in psychology and a diploma in counselling concurrently. So the reason I'm doing that is the counselling part, I'll be finished hopefully mid to late this year and be able to actually start practicing clinically as a counsellor, and then be able to keep chipping away at the psychology side of things part-time. And yeah, like I guess it's probably pretty obvious why I'm studying those things, but I really enjoy, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like I really enjoy the, obviously like mental health side of things. I also really love the performance side of things as well, performance psychology. So I see a shrink myself, like a psychologist, and he is like mental health. We do mental health, but he's also performance based. So he also does like all my sports psych as well. And he's been fantastic for both. I need to book in with him again. I've spoken to him for a while with all this COVID stuff, but yeah.
Oh, you pulled the laptop off. And I also noticed you've started a podcast, Sweat Therapy. I
changed the name because Sweat Therapy was the name of like a brand for stuff that I was doing. Yeah, it's been chopping along. It's like one of those things that I was like, fuck yeah, coronavirus, let's start a podcast. And like, it's certainly not my main thing, but it's actually really enjoyable. I really enjoy chatting to people. And like, I like just picking people's brains. Like the dude that I interviewed last week was from the UK and he was on that show, Too Hot to Handle, like a new reality TV show.
Oh yeah.
So I spoke to him and like I've known him from well before the show, and I was like, man, like to me, like that's fascinating. Like how do you mentally prepare yourself to go on a show that then blows up like that? So yeah, like it's as much about me learning as then sharing other people's stories, and it's been really enjoyable so far.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing with this, because I say my YouTube channel is normally kind of vlogs where I get out to CrossFit boxers, meet athletes and train and do open workouts. And then I kind of sat at home thinking, I've got no content. I don't know what to do. Like I'm working my full-time job as well at home, but I thought, well, I want to do something for the YouTube channel as well. So I just started messaging a few people, and then a few people replied who I didn't expect to reply. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm just going to start messaging like everyone. See who replied, and I've had some amazing names. And then when you got back to me, I was like, this is so cool. Like, even if it doesn't make the channel take off, like from a selfish point of view, I'm getting to speak to people who I look up to, who I see like on the telly, who I see on Instagram all the time. I was like, that's fucking cool. So that's the beauty of it.
It is, and like everyone's got such unique perspectives on everything that I think there's so much value in just having conversations, and they really are a dying art. Like, you know, everything's shorthand communication these days, and I know I love it. I think the other thing for me is like I even find it difficult sometimes to post on Instagram. It's like 2,000 character limit to what you want to say. Like that's fucking nothing. I'm writing these essays for my captions and being like, I was going to trim it back and trim it back and trim it back. I posted something today and it was less than half of what I initially wrote. It's like, wow, I don't really get to kind of like put that out there. But that's why I really like these long form, like the blogs the podcast, which is long form content effectively.
I think it's just a good way of getting to know someone on a more like kind of personal level. So I've spoken to a couple of athletes now who have been completely different to what you kind of see on social media, and that's good then for everyone else to see.
Yeah, 100%.
Makes them like almost normalize them. Like, yes, they're an elite athlete, but they're just a normal dude at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? They love a beer, they love to have a laugh with the lads, and I think that's the beauty of doing these kind of things.
100%, man, 100%.
That's cool. Now, I really do appreciate your time today, Khan. It's
no worries, bud.
And I'll get this edited and get it all posted up and let you know when it's up.
Easy, buddy. Thank you so much.
Cool. No worries at all. I hope you have, well, it's the evening for you, isn't it? So I hope you have a nice
It
evening.
is. Rip into some dinner now. I'll clean up the shredded box all over my living room. And yeah, go
I'm
from
going to
there.
start doing some work now. So I
Easy,
appreciate it,
buddy.
dude. Thanks, buddy.
Catch
See
you,
you
mate.
later.